shit to do. Spoiler talk.
So, all right. I knew for sure, like when I go to work, I'm kind of the comic guy. There's maybe one other one's Billy. If you're listening to this, you're one of the comic bros too. But when it comes to the Marvel stuff, I'm the Marvel guy. So I knew when I went to work, I was going to get asked questions, and I got all the questions I got were from the end credit scene.
By the way, there are 5 of them.
Yes, there are.
Only 2 of them actually move the plot in any way.
Yeah. And the Adam Warlock stuff, when I got to work, I got 5 different questions of who's Adam? And it's like, oh.
Well, that makes sense because like you said earlier, like comic fans, there's a lot of comic fans that didn't know who the Guardians were. Adam Warlock, he really hasn't been used since all the Annihilation stuff in 2006 either. His heyday was 91 when they did the Infinity Gauntlet stuff. So he's really fallen to the wayside the last 10 years.
Yeah, I knew when they asked me to explain Adam Warlock, it's like, oh, please don't make me explain this. Please don't make me explain this. I'm like, I just pretty much like, look, he's a big deal. He's a powerful character coming. He's a big deal.
He's Rocky from Rocky Horror Picture Show, except with magic.
Just go read a wiki article. It's gonna explain it better than I am.
I will say,
split into like 3 people. It's the whole thing.
I loved the end credits with Stallone and the original Guardians.
Yeah,
that was cool.
When we were talking, that was our theory, was that he was going to be Starhawk and that the Ravager captains were going to be the original Guardians team, and that
turned out it was like a week or 2 ago. They're like, yeah, this is actually what happens.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it was really cool. And there's so Yondu dies.
Right there.
That out there. Let's put that out there. The scene when they're on the planet, like that snowy planet.
Hoth?
Yeah. Hoth, but a lot more colorful. Yeah. Guardians is pretty much Star Wars for a new generation. I've seen a lot of articles saying this is the new Star Wars.
I understand, yeah.
But when they're on that snowy bar planet, and we see Stallone for the first time, and he
has no build-up. That's
he's
the cool
just
thing.
Bam. He's just there. I heard people in the audience gasp because I guess they didn't know he was going to be in it. And I'm like, I wish I could be you, just not know these things,
be out of the loop for once.
But when he's talking to Yondu, and they're talking about how he's an exile from the main crew because he
dealt in kids.
Yeah, he was stealing kids for ego, and when they're talking I wanted that movie. I want that movie of Yondu and the Ravager captains, the old Guardians team. When I watched that, I was like, oh my god, I want more of this.
Yeah, which I feel like Guardians 3 will be. We follow the Guardians, we follow Stallone's Ravagers, and they'll both intertwine to meet with Adam Warlock or something. James Gunn had an interview about Warlock today. I didn't read it though.
A lot of the rumors were Warlock was going to show up in the Infinity War stuff, the Avengers movies.
Which makes sense.
He is not. Gunn debunked that in an article. Granted, it could be one of those, hey, look over here, don't pay attention, and kind of be just just blowing smoke, and he could actually show up. But I think it was Gunn or Feige. I'll try to look it up. We're like, no, he's not. He's going to be a main player in the cinematic universe, but not in Infinity Wars.
Yeah.
We're going to see him again in Guardians 3. Yeah. So, which is, I guess it kind of makes sense. I'd like to see him in Infinity War since he plays a part in that in the comics so heavy. But I think it's a lot to try to explain him on top of
in one movie.
Yeah, on top of Thanos, and I think Thanos is going to have his guard with him. I forgot what they're called.
Yeah, the Black Order.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in it. So we got a lot of stuff to introduce us to.
Yeah.
Then to be like, all right, here's Adam Warlock.
But that brings us to the plot of Guardians 2, which essentially boils down to Ego finds Peter, says, hey, I'm your dad. And from there, it's really those two, and then everyone else is kind of doing their own things around them.
Yeah, the Sovereign Race is there a lot. The plot's really kind of small. It's essentially Rocket.
On paper.
Yeah, Rocket steals some batteries from the Sovereign Race and pisses them off because of disrespect.
Yeah.
And I love how the Sovereign Race
They're so petty.
Is super petty. That's the running joke on the show is I'm petty. And I can appreciate pettiness. And they just were these rich kids, these rich preppy kids who were just super spoiled and were we're just getting mad over little petty stuff. I loved they were actually really really funny.
I liked them.
I did too. And that's how I would imagine I don't know. It wouldn't be as fun if they were played straight.
Well, they pass themselves off as supreme beings, so it makes sense for them just to be so petty.
Yeah, and super egotistic, and
Yeah.
just be like, well, how dare you steal from us? And so they send their entire fleet. But yeah, it's essentially they steal some batteries. They're on the run, and then Ego shows up, saves them, and then like the rest of the time we see, for the most part, for part of the Guardians team is just on Ego, while like, okay, I guess there's a lot of other plots mixed in. There's like 3 different plot lines.
Yeah, well, I mean, while they're on
on.
Ego, Rocket, they've got Nebula because they trade protecting batteries for Nebula, and Groot. They're stuck on the world they crash landed on. The Ravagers are actually coming to meet them because Yondu has traced their ship.
Yeah, because Taserface.
Taserface.
Was it Taserface that gave him? No, that's later on. No. Yondu put a tracker on their ship. That's how he found him. Never mind. The Taserface stuff is coming later.
Yeah. So the Ravagers capture Rocket, not without a hilarious fight where Rocket just shows that he's one of the best tactical minds in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh my god, that was, his gadgets were amazing, and like he's also just being petty.
And he only loses because Yondu shows up with his magic fucking arrow.
Yeah.
And he even beats the dude barehanded, which is awesome.
Oh, when he just starts throwing punches and just beats the crap. I loved it. Yeah.
So they capture him, and then Kraglin, his second in command, is like why do you keep like something happens with Quill, and he's like, why do you keep sparing Quill? It's like we're your men. And before Yondu can do anything, there's a mutiny, and Nebula actually incites the riot.
Yeah, she gets free and like shoots off his
fin.
Yeah, or like, because it's not really a fin yet. It's like that weird
Bump.
Yeah, mohawk thing on his head. Knocks him out. Knocks Rocket out, and then just they take them captive.
Yeah. So their plot from there is getting away from the Ravagers.
Yeah,
which is really cool. Rocket is my favorite character in the movie, and he has probably the best character arc, I think, because at the start of the movie he's abrasive to everyone. He's being a dick for no reason. By the end of the movie, he's
self-destructive.
And it's Yondu of all people that are like, dude, you're being a dick. I know why you're scared, because nobody's ever gonna rat's ass about you.
Pun.
Anyway,
Anyway,
what is the triangle face monkey?
Yeah, triangle face, trash panda. I love all the nicknames for Rocket.
Yeah.
But what I liked was characters we didn't really care much about in the first one. Rocket aside, but like Nebula and Yondu, like
they were pretty one note in the first movie.
I didn't care much for them. In this movie, I loved both those characters. Maybe because they both got really
they got
cool.
more time.
Yeah, and then Nebula gets an arc, and a ton of character development. But the conversation between Yondu and Rocket was almost heartbreaking. Like,
well, and in the first movie, we get that bit where Rocket's like, I was pulled apart several times. I was genetically modified, but it's nothing's done with it because it's immediately into a joke. And this time, Yondu brings it up. He's like, those scientists didn't give a shit about you. Now you finally found someone who does, and you're afraid to be with your family, and you're just being a little asshole. And like, there's so much built in. And you even see Rocket, and he's like, oh, shit.
And yeah, because like Rocket's like, well, who are you to talk? And Yondu's like, well, I know, because you're like me. You're me. And this is a story about family, not like Fast and Furious.
It's chosen family.
But like, it's done better because Rocket and Peter, like Rocket and Quill are like brothers in this family. Like, you can tell, like, they fight like brothers. And I love that it was Yondu talking to Rocket about like, yeah, you stole those batteries because you're self-destructive. You're trying to push people away. So Rocket's growth is amazing in this movie. And Yondu, of course, too. But
he grows so much that they couldn't keep him in a third movie.
I love Nebula, too. I know you're going to have to bounce around this movie because there's so much. But Nebula, who's a character I didn't expect to care about at all.
Nebula and Gamora. I gave no fucks about them in the first movie.
Gamora felt like a knockoff Black Widow in the first one. She's like, oh, she's an assassin, I guess. But this movie, she was a badass. When she picks up that giant, like, the gun off the ship and just throws it on her shoulder. I was like, holy
late in the movie, Nebula tracks her down to Ego's planet, comes in guns blazing in a big start, like a personal fighter jet. And when it wrecks, Gamora picks up one of the guns and goes to town on her.
Oh, it looked awesome. But Nebula's speech to Gamora about, like, every time I lost in a fight, Thanos would literally pull me apart and then just implant tech
To
or
try to
like
make you better.
cybernetics or whatever. And it's horrifying. The way she's telling it to you is like, oh my God. Like every time she lost a fight.
He took my eye, he took my arm, he took my brain. Like he fucked her up.
Yeah, like it's horrifying because I can't imagine Thanos is like gentle about any of this.
No.
And she's like, you never let me win. All this stuff was happening. Like all I wanted was a sister.
That line kills you because, and like you said, she goes, all you ever wanted was to win, to be better, to win. All you ever wanted, always to win. And she goes, all I ever wanted was a sister. I'm like, oh man.
Oh yeah, and that
this character. Like, oh.
In that moment, like Nebula became like you fall in love with Nebula.
Yeah.
You can't help it. But like I almost looked at Gamora of like you can understand Nebula like that first movie, everything she did in that first movie and her hatred for Gamora all of a sudden makes complete and total sense. Like I understand her motivation in one quick line of all I wanted was a sister. And immediately I cared about Gamora or cared about Nebula. It was crazy. And then Gamora had some character growth through it too. Yeah. Like I cared about her and like her picking up the gun and throwing it on her shoulder and some of the fight scenes she had.
Yeah, she had cool moments. I
realized that she is a badass. Like
she is the world's most dangerous woman, or the galaxy's most dangerous woman.
Yeah, like because I want Gamora. I don't want to feel like Black Widow could beat Gamora. Yeah. And it was in this movie I was like, oh my gosh, like she's awesome.
And she gets her own character moments too, because you see her grow closer to Quill, but she's afraid, and then everything with Nebula, which I love that it's not resolved. By the end of the movie, like they're peaceful with each other, but there's still that tension.
Oh, with Nebula?
Yeah, with Nebula, yeah. It's really well done.
I'm excited to see Nebula in the third movie. Well, I think we'll see her in Infinity War.
Yeah, she's in Infinity War.
Which is cool because I want to see her really be a part of the Guardians. When I got into comics, I read the Annihilation series, which is for someone getting into comics really for the first time. It's probably not a great place to start because I didn't know what an event was or any of that. But Nebula's in that is in that run, and I actually liked her in that. So I was excited to see her be cool in this movie.
Yeah,
but so Quill, like I was surprised at how much time the Guardians like they spent. I was more interested in the stuff happening with Yondu, Rocket, more than what was happening with Peter and Ego for a while at the beginning.
I think the thing about that is like you can kind of guess what's going to happen with them. Is like okay, they're going to hang out for a bit. Ego's going to do something stupid, and then because you don't really know who the big bad of the movie is until about halfway through.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
I mean, knowing that he's Ego,
you get a tip off, but
yeah, like for those who know Ego's a bad guy, you get like we would know that. Like listening to fans, and we'll get to this moment in a second where I heard gasps again. But every time I see Ego, like a part of me is like, I know Ego's a bad guy, so this has got to go bad at some point. But of course, Peter Quill has some really funny moments talking with Ego.
I laughed for 5 straight minutes. So Ego tells him, he goes, "Son, I'm a Celestial."
How did you feel about that? Because Ego drops the line that he's not just a planet, like he's eternal, like he's a Celestial, essentially.
There's a part of me that wanted to be kind of upset about it, but I can't because when you think about the movie universe, you're already balls deep in cosmic stuff. I don't see the point in introducing the Living Tribunal or anything deeper. But so just by using Celestials as more of a catch-all, I think it's safer. And it works for this movie universe.
When I was sitting between you and Seth, and when he said Celestial, I could feel both of you kind of like tense up for a second, like just processing that. I think I kind of did too a little bit, but judging from the first Guardians movie where they introduced Celestials for the first time in that movie, it kind of makes sense to be like
just roll with it.
Yeah, just because introducing the Living Tribunal and all that. It's like, look, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is not the comics. It's a very like tightened up version of the comics. I'm like, it's cool. He's a Celestial. I'm fine with that. That makes sense.
It actually makes the Celestials a bit more varied because Celestials in the comics, they're all like there's giant dudes.
Yeah, they're just a bunch of different Galactuses.
Yeah, so him being a Celestial is pretty cool.
Yeah, so I didn't mind that, but while Peter's on Ego, and I'll set you up.
So
he can use.
He talks about being a Celestial, and he goes, I've traveled planet to planet. I've had many children. And he goes, I loved your mom. And he goes, Peter, you've got my power. As long as you're on this planet, you're connected to the light.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know he has other kids yet. He just said that
that's,
of all the things.
He says that later when he's talking to him. He's like, I wasn't completely honest with you.
Yeah, when he's like, I've been around for millennia, and of all the things I've ever done, you're the one thing I don't regret. And then you have access to what he calls the light or whatever, and he can kind of apparently make constructs or whatever.
So they start playing around the space energy, and he goes, with some training you can do whatever you want. And Peter, who he reverts instantly back to his inner 10-year-old, goes, oh my God, I'll make a Pac-Man. I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna make this. And he just stops and goes, I'm gonna make some weird shit.
And you lose it.
I lost it for 5 minutes. That's my favorite line in the movie.
Yeah, because he he does it so fast. He's like, I'm gonna make a Pac-Man. I'm gonna make a giant Pac-Man. I'm gonna make a
pinball table. I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna make this
giant statue. Yeah, it's and he just keeps going. And he gets himself so hyped up, and he just goes, I'm gonna make some weird shit.
Well, and and in that moment, he was no longer Peter Quill. He was Andy Dwyer.
Yeah, I can see that.
I love it. I want that GIF. I want that on a shirt. I want it tattooed. I just love that so much. Of course, not everything goes as well on Ego.
Yeah, when they finally get that reveal that when Gamora and Nebula are in these caves or tunnel system or whatever, when they find out that they're or when they come across all those skeletons.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about Mantis. Let's talk about Mantis for a second.
Yes. So Mantis is Ego's pet, pretty much.
Yeah, essentially
he's raised her, and she has the power to, if she's touching you, she can read. She's a telepath.
She's an empath.
She's an empath.
Telepaths can.
Well, she's also a telepath because she can read minds as well.
No, she can read emotions.
Okay, never mind.
Because she makes a point explaining what a telepath is and what an empath is.
And she can also alter emotions.
Yeah. So if you're feeling afraid, she can make you complacent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or put you to sleep. She can just affect emotion.
And Ego uses her to go to sleep.
Yeah. She is. What's the actress's name?
I don't know.
We have to look that up. She was awesome.
She's wonderful.
She is almost a show stealer in the scene she's in. The things she does with her facial expressions were incredibly funny. Her being this naive, innocent, being, and
she's just subjected to all this awful stuff all the time.
Yeah, and then being dropped with the Guardians, the stuff she has with Drax, because Drax is so blunt and just their interactions were amazing. I am so I want Mantis. I think of course she's on the ship when they're leaving in the end of the movie. Yeah. So I think we'll see her in the third one. But I loved her. She was so funny. I have a crush on Mantis. I know that's weird.
I noticed that.
I have an extreme crush on Mantis. Holy crap. I just want to hang out with her.
Well, and
all
she
day.
Gets the moment where I almost cried at Drax. Because Drax, like we said in the first movie, he's a joke. In this movie, he's still that buffoon, who's nothing goes over my head because I'll catch it. But he gets more humanizing moments, and we actually get to hear him talk about his daughter and his wife several times.
Yes, when he's having that, when he's sitting with Mantis outside, and he's and she's kind of talking to him, and he's talking about his wife, and
you can feel he's kind of he's far in the eye, he's kind of remembering it, but he's still kind of blunt.
And then you get Mantis, who's she's listening to him talk, and then she wants to feel his feelings. She's real hesitant about it. But when she touches him,
it's instant.
And she immediately he's just stoic, no emotion on his face, just looking out. And when she touches him, she just immediately just starts bawling, and oh my gosh,
it was rough.
I'm getting chills just thinking about that scene.
Because that's the emotion we need to feel when Drax talks about his family.
Yeah,
Thanos took everything from him, and the first movie we didn't get that.
And it's perfect because Drax isn't the guy that's gonna cry.
And he's not the guy who's gonna open up tenderly about it.
It's a brilliant scene when she touches him and he's still being stoic and she's bawling, feeling what he's feeling. Oh my gosh, it is my favorite scene in the movie. There's a lot of scenes in this movie that are meant to give you a gut punch, and I love that this time James Gunn didn't play them for a joke.
Yeah,
some of them he did.
Yeah,
but some of the heavier ones, like the Rocket and Yondu conversation, where it's you're like me,
Drax and Mantis, Ego, and
Quill later, like
and Gamora and Nebula, like and everyone's got that like one moment where it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah, and they did, and they let it hang there for a second and not do a joke.
He let it mean something.
Because at the beginning of the movie, there's some stuff that's played as jokes. I'm like, okay, they're gonna do this again. But when he lets those moments hang in a movie that's funny from start to finish, this movie is hilarious. So when you have those heartfelt moments put in, it hurts that much more.
Yeah.
That Mantis scene was amazing. It made me like Drax that much more.
And that's even in this whole because the whole conversation, like, and Drax is talking about his wife, and he's like, you know, she's beautiful because she wasn't dancing, and this and this. He's like, you're disgusting, you're ugly. Like, it's a huge jokey scene, and as soon as he starts to actually get lost in his thought and talk, like, that's when it gets important. It's just a wonderful scene.
Yeah. There's a lot of, and this, what I liked about this movie too is it's a movie about fathers for Quill, I guess. And another moment that, like, even though I know Ego is a bad guy, like, I know this guy's a bad guy, he's gonna make a turn at some point. When it happens, I was caught off guard by, like, what because
it's so nonchalant. And
I've never, and I will get to it, I'll say what it is, but I've never been so mad at a villain, like, just in a spurt of rage, which is that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
is what he says to Quill. So, like,
and before you say that, we'll set up a bit. So at this point, we know that there's thousands or millions of dead bodies inside of Ego.
Yeah,
skulls and whatnot. We also know that he's planted some type of life on every planet.
Yeah, this little plant. We see it at the opening scene.
Yeah.
This little space glowy plant.
Space plant.
An avatar plant.
And Ego comes up and he's talking about how his real plan. He goes, Peter, my real plan is, I want to make everything assimilated. Pretty much, he wants everything to be him, because he's Ego.
Yeah, and Mantis has given us cues that something is off.
Yeah,
but when he touches Quill, and his eyes go, like, they glaze over and look like
they see
space.
The stars.
Yeah, and he's kind of seeing the universe, I'm assuming, and that's when Ego's like, yeah, I want to make everything essentially himself, like, beautiful.
Because everybody eventually dies, and there's nothing like me. I'm the only thing that matters in existence, pretty much.
Yeah. And this is when he starts to tell Quill about the kids, because he's like, I've searched the universe for millennia, trying to find, having kids trying to make
someone like you, someone who shares my genetic makeup. Yeah, and none of them have the celestial gene.
Yeah, because he wants to make everything perfect.
And without the celestial gene, they're useless to him. So he kills them.
Yeah, because he needs, essentially, like, because what he can't do by himself, he's making another him, so, like,
he can get some help.
Yeah, because it's a lot he has to do to essentially terraform the universe. But when he's talking, Peter starts to come to himself, and, like, he's like, but because if he's had kids throughout the universe, I thought you loved my mom. And Ego's like, I did love your mom, like, more than, like, he starts to try to redeem himself. He goes, I did.
He goes, I never wanted to leave her. I visited her 4 times.
He's like, I visited her 3 times. And he goes, if I knew if there was a fourth, if there was a fourth, I would have never leave. Because there's a song played in about being a sailor and being called back out to sea. And he's like, if I'd have gone that 4th time, I would have never left.
Now during this, if I remember correctly, this is when the pieces start to bloom, and, like, they start terraforming planets in Ego's image, right?
Maybe. I can't remember if that's happening. I think that might happen a little later. I'm not sure.
No.
But yeah, when he's talking about if I'd have come back that 4th time, I would have never left. So that's why I put that tumor in her head. And when he says that, it's like, yeah, that's why I put that tumor in her head. Like, the entire audience gasps.
Yeah.
Like, and even me, knowing he's a bad guy, immediately felt rage. And I love Peter's reaction, because there's not even a split. As soon as he says, that's why I put that tumor in her head, as soon as he finishes that sentence, Peter starts shooting.
Yeah.
Like, he just pulls out his guns and immediately...
His eyes become clear. He goes, you killed my mom, and blasts him. And if he was a normal guy, he'd be dead. But
yeah, which... We've seen this kind of thing in Age of Ultron, Civil War 2, because of Tony Stark losing his mom and some about if you could, and like of course Batman be Superman. But like I've never felt the weight. Well, I'll say in Cap 2 Iron Man when he's like when he looks at Cap and he's like he killed my mom and he goes after Bucky. Like
that was more sad though.
Yeah.
I think it's because it was Bucky and you know that he was trying to redeem himself.
Yeah,
whereas Ego was just a dick.
Yeah, because immediately I was like, oh get him, Quill, and like he just starts laying Ego out and like again it was just a casual line of that's why I put that tumor in her head, but I felt immediate rage just as Peter did. Like it was again, James Gunn. Well,
bravo. Yeah. And this isn't Peter lays him out like with punches. No, he shoots the man to death. Yeah,
just relentless, like just doesn't stop. It's like I again like there's all those little moments where you're just like, holy crap, ow, like that hurt when you watch.
And of course, Ego being a Celestial, he gets the upper hand. The Guardians come in and fight him, which is it's a cool last fight scene, and it's all tied around the trailer scene where we see Rocket and Groot with the bomb.
Yeah,
that's when they're actually on Ego, and they're going to plant a bomb on his brain, much like a tumor. Just saying.
Yeah,
ironic.
That's true. Baby Groot, I will say I enjoyed Baby Groot through this movie
for the most part. Like the stuff with him and Yondu and Rocket was fun.
Oh, it was super fun.
But I'm glad this was only for one movie because if this was another movie with Baby Groot, I would have wanted to kick the motherfucker.
Yeah, I liked how everybody treated Baby Groot like their little baby. Yeah. Like even the opening scene when they're fighting, that cosmic whatever that monster is, and Groot's dancing around doing the opening credit scene or whatever, and like the way the different Guardians react to him, like tell him to get out of the way, or Rocket like trying to shoo him along, and Gamora sees him and like Rocket waves at her and she's just like hi, like a little like he would to a toddler.
Yeah,
I did love how they treated Groot, and I loved how Groot hated those space rats.
Yes,
like dude, like he had this vendetta.
God, what against those space rats. He's like, no, they didn't call you this or something.
Yeah,
like
they
that.
I forgot what he says, but every time they show up, like he just stops what he's doing. Chases us down. Like even when Rocket and Yondu were trying to get him to go get Yondu's like
prototype
Finn, and he's bringing back different stuff. I won't talk about what he brings back, but he does bring back one of those rats and it's hog-tied. I love that. But yeah, so we get to see, and I love their jetpacks in this too. Like their tech was really cool. I did like their tech a lot.
That is one thing. I was watching a movie and I was like, man, I can't wait till they're on Earth. Because I want to see how primitive they think everything looks, or how they react to like Stark tech, or pretty much anything on Earth.
I want the scene of Rocket taking apart Iron Man's leg while he's in the suit. Like he just looks down and Rocket's taking apart. Like it's like just looking. How does this work? Like how do you have this kind of tech? Like
he's like, hey, this is pretty sophisticated for Earth stuff. It's like this or Terra stuff, and he just like repulses him off or something. And I bet he constantly wants Bucky's arm.
I want him. We both want that scene of him. Like, I need that man's arm.
That is one of my favorite things from the movie. Where one thing they do with when Groot is trying to get stuff is like he drops an eye and he's like, "That's not the Finn. That's an eye, boy." And I was like, "Yeah, but he'll wake up in the morning and you won't know where it is."
Yeah, he's like,
hilarious.
He's like, leave that here. Why? Because he'll wake up in the morning. Yeah, it is really fun.
God, I love Rocket so much.
That end fight was cool. Yondu's Finn, I loved his Mohawk Finn.
Yeah. The whole scene with the Ravagers was good, and pretty much anything with Rocket versus Taserface.
Oh, we skipped over Taserface.
God, yeah. So the mutiny happens, and if you like Sons of Anarchy, Chibs dies.
Oh yeah, and that sucked too.
Yeah, that's really sad. But like, and he's talking to Rocket. Is it Taserface leads the crew now, and Rocket just laughs in his face. He just saw like 50 men be shut out of an airlock, and these guys are going to plan to murder him. And Rocket's just like, "Oh, fuck your name."
Yeah, he just keeps talking crap about his name. That goes on for a while, and it's really funny. The Ravengers, like, I love how Yondu's just emotionless. He's just sitting there, and then it's James Gunn's brother who plays
Sean Gunn.
Sean Gunn, who plays that. Like, is that him? Right, the non really
his second in command.
Yeah. He essentially saves Yondu and Rocket.
Yeah.
But their breakout scene when Yondu gets his whistle arrow.
And you see just how damaging he is.
Oh my gosh, like that thing is that's one reason I want to see 3D is I think that scene will look really cool.
Yeah.
But when he's just whistling and just wrecking all the traitorous Ravengers was awesome. And I love how when they get into that central command area or whatever where they're surrounded by monitors and like he's whistling the arrow through the wall. And then Rocket just picks up 2 guns that he had found along the way and just starts shooting through the walls too, killing people. Was awesome.
It's a cool scene.
His whistle is badass. I love his whistle arrow.
And then we get to the end with the end fight. And we actually get James Gunn does a better Man of Steel fight than Zack Snyder does.
Yeah, there was a better Superman fight in Guardians.
Yeah.
Like with more emotion and weight than there was.
Yeah, because Ego has rebuilt his body. And he's about to kill everybody. And Peter, everybody's like getting hurt around him. He's trying to get everyone out. And Yondu is being covered in debris. And he's like, boy, I don't command this arrow with my head. I use my heart.
No.
And that kind of sets. And once again, this is a movie about fathers. Ego is Peter's biological father, but Yondu is his daddy, as he says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He inspires Peter enough to like
actually know how to like hold his own against the Celestial,
and them enough time for Groot to set the charge and for like them to essentially defeat Ego. But I do love the joke where Yondu's got his arrow and he's gliding down.
Yeah,
and Peter looks at him and goes, "You look like Mary Poppins," and Yondu's like, "Is he cool?" Like Peter's like, yeah, he's real cool. And he's like, hey, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. Like, I love that line. But
and they start fighting, and like we actually get the Fleetwood Mac Chain song starts to play, which is very appropriate. Like, it's a very appropriate music piece. And him and Ego just lay into each other. And of course, we get the big scene where Ego starts to form rocks around him, and he forms himself. And Peter does the same, and he forms Pac-Man.
Which is awesome.
Once again, he's going to build some weird shit.
I loved it. That in fight's cool. Like, their fight choreography is great in this with the jetpacks and them flying around.
Yeah, and
like, the Guardians look awesome moving around. I was almost annoyed in the opening credits when Groot's doing his dance while the Guardians are fighting that monster because they looked... I kept wanting to see what was happening in the background because of them flying around everywhere. I thought that looked really cool.
I like that because if you watch the Marvel movies, like anything like set on Earth, like Cap, Winter Soldier kind of set the standard for all the fight scenes on Earth. And Guardians is like, that's cool, but we're going to do something completely different.
Yeah, their fight choreography looks amazing. But I will say Yondu, like after all that stuff's done, after like Ego's been beat, and we have the whole setup with Yondu and Rocket, and Rocket hands him like a jetpack thing essentially
and a spacesuit.
Yeah,
he only has one of each.
Yeah, one rocket thing and one spaceship thing, and we kind of know what's going to happen here. Like when he hands the one of each. So when like the planet's about to blow, and Yondu like has his jetpack, grabs Quill, and they're flying off, and all of a sudden Yondu puts the space suit thing on, or the button that forms like bubble wrap or whatever around him, and gives him the space suit as they're flying off, and like Peter Quill like realizes what's about to happen, that like Yondu's saving him, but sacrificing himself.
Yeah.
And that scene, like again, thinking about Yondu from the first movie to Yondu in this movie, like I never thought that I'd be hurt so bad by losing Yondu. And I've had texts all week from either friends or from Seth and from others being like, I hate that Yondu's dead. Because when they get to space, Yondu, like, as anybody would do in space, like, he dies. He dies and freezes over. And, like, it's legit. It's not like pulling a Groot, which we found out some interesting stuff about.
Yeah,
Groot.
James Gunn released today that Baby Groot has none of Groot's memories.
Yeah, he is essentially just a new Groot. Yeah. So Groot essentially died. That version of Groot died in the first movie. But we still have like a new Groot or whatever. But Yondu in this he's awesome. Yeah, he's gone. Like he's awesome, but yeah, he's way dead. He's way dead. Cuz that's when we get that another impactful scene. Cuz at the end of Guardians, I think they always kind of have a Peter Quill like emotional scene. His was when he's reading the letter from his mom. that ended with like my little Star-Lord, and you kind of all of a sudden were like, that's why he wants that code name or whatever. But this one, when he's standing over Yondu and being like, talking about Yondu, and he's like, you know what, I had a really cool dad. Like, it's like, oh man. Like, because you get these flashbacks of Yondu teaching him how to shoot and things like that. And he's like, yeah, I guess I had a pretty cool dad. Yeah. Like, I know the next day at work, most of the things I heard were people being like, were really upset over Yondu's death. But it was a good, like, that's a mark of a good death when you're really upset about losing a character. Like, that took guts. Like, yeah. So, but we get the Ravengers send off. That's where all the Ravager captains show up, and they have their ceremonial burial or whatever, where they like
they spread their ashes into space, and everyone like releases fireworks and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, it was a cool. The movie is, if it's anything, colorful.
Yeah,
as Guardians, the first one was. If you thought the first Guardians was colorful, this is that on steroids. No. But that's where we get to see all the Ravager captains, and that's when we start to realize like, there's the original Guardians team. Like that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, this movie was surprisingly amazing. I knew I would like it. I didn't know how much I would love it.
Yeah.
And even now that we're because usually at the end of the movie when we go out, we have our post roundup, like chit chat just outside. That's always fun. But like the next day, I can start to kind of cool on a movie. But the more I've sat back, the more I'm enjoying the movie.
Yeah.